Hello everyone. I'm going to show you how I figured out a way to fix a problem with the power supply for a Firegenie remote control system on my Regency gas fireplace insert. This is what it looks like here. Looks like it works also with Hamilton and Excalibur systems, but what I'm going to show may also work for anything that needs 4 AA batteries to power it. You do need a standard wall outlet available nearby, and a little bit of soldering skill may help you get through this, but you might be able to work around it. So this insert was installed in 2007, about 12 years ago, and everything's been working fine except for an issue where the power supply for the remote control receiver, which is right here, started giving me some issues a few years ago, and it turns out that it's powered by 4 AA batteries, and the batteries would die and then they would leak and then they would corrode the contacts, and that little red blinking light shows that you have power to the receiver, and I would check it and there would be no power, and I would have an issue with the batteries, and then I would have to do something about that. So cleaned it a few times, I got it working again, and then eventually it just kind of died on me, so I needed another solution. So I wanted to make a note that I contacted the local dealer, since my original installer went out of business some years ago. The replacement cost for the whole system, including the remote, was going to be over $250. And you have to buy the remote control handset in addition to the receiver. He talked about another kind of generic replacement, and I think those are available for less money on major retailers online, but probably with more work and a little bit more complicated of an install than you might want. So I'm going to show you how I was able to get around the AA batteries with a fixed constant 6-volt power supply that I was able to find online. So I did some research. The solution I came up with was this 6-volt. It's a 2-amp power supply from InShare Plus. They actually sell different models, 1-amp, 2-amp, and a few others, but I went with a 2-amp. I'm sure it's way more than I need. It's about $1 or $2 difference between the models. I'm sure you can get by with the 1-amp. I know this works, so that's what I'm going to recommend. I will say that the power cord that comes with it is on the short side, and fortunately it comes with an adapter that allows you to extend the wiring, and I'll show you how I did that. So I've just pulled the remote receiver out from underneath where it sits there, and what it looks like here is there's the front. I believe this is a receiver antenna for the remote control, and then the 2 black wires here are what actually send the switch signal to the fireplace, and you don't have to touch any of that for this installation. And what I've actually added, you can see there's a red and a black, very thin, low gauge wire that will mate to the power supply. So here's the view from the top. I'm going to be removing the 2 small Phillips screws at the corners here. That's going to open up the top of the casing for the receiver box. So I've unplugged it from the power. I removed those 2 screws on the corners, and I just want to show you on the front where the writing is, that is the battery compartment. So it says press to open, and it's a little spring-loaded casing. If I can do this with one hand. This is where the 4 AA batteries would be. Slides out like so. And then this is where you would open it to replace the batteries. I just want to say, when you put it back together, it's important that this has to stay with it and inserted for everything to fit together correctly. That was a little confusing when I was doing this the first time around. So right now you can slide that out. And then the top of the casing, I guess I'm going to pop the switch off the front. You can do that as well anytime. Hopefully this looks okay. This antenna for the remote kind of holds the top of the box in place. Gonna have to work that out a little bit, and then you'll see everything comes apart. So you've got it's the battery compartment itself. That's the switch. These are the 2 contacts. Now when the first time you take it apart, the original wires are going to still be attached to these contacts, I believe. That's right. So I've already unsoldered the 2 plus and minus wires from these 2 contacts, and I'll show you how I did that. And then this plate is part of the mechanism that holds that battery compartment in place. So the first time that one of these is opened up, it won't look exactly like this. It's actually going to have 2 short wires. And you can see if it focuses, the red and the black wires on the left here. There's 2 short wires that are soldered onto the plus and minus contacts for the battery pack. So instead of being disconnected like this, it'll actually be connected, and you can only open it up a little bit. So I'll show you what I did in order to remove those wires. I just popped a flat screwdriver underneath each one of these and just pried it. They slide right out to the top quite easily. And then I just have a regular soldering iron just to remove the wires that were attached. So this is where if you want to use a different type of connection, you're going to have to take these out and solder something else in place. So inside here you've got this little circuit board. The 2 power wires, again, looking at it this way, they're the red and the black up in this corner here. From the front, the only concern you have is the LED light here. When you remove the circuit board, you just have to kind of gently work it out so you don't put any stress on that little LED there. You do need to remove, there's 2 other small Phillips screws here. I'll point to them. So the 2 here and here, those need to come out. And then you can just kind of lift gently the circuit board up and back. And then you can remove it to access the solder connection if you do need to replace those 2 wires, power wires here. You're going to need to be able to access the other side of this circuit board. Now I'm not going to do that here If you get this far into it, you'll easily be able to see what needs to be done. They do feed through a small hole through the circuit board. I think that's just a strain relief. So they're actually soldered on the bottom side. They feed down through that hole, and then what I've done is I fed it across to the left here, and I just wrapped it one time around the two heavier gauge, those two black wires you can see, the switch wires. And then I just put it through a little, I think it was about 14 inches total, a little piece of vinyl tubing just for protection of the wires. You do need to use pretty small gauge wire. This is a stranded copper wire. I just tinned the ends of the wire with solder. I repurposed this wire from another application that I was getting rid of. I kind of wish it was a little bit better, but it's going to do the job, so I'm fine with that. And then I will show you, this is the adapter that comes with the power supply. So I'm hoping you can see it here. So it's got a standard round female end here. So this is much like a laptop power supply or anything you'd plug in, a cordless phone base or anything. But they give you this piece. It's got two little small Phillips screws, and you can see the plus and the minus. You can just put any wire that you have into the two receptacles and then just tighten it up, make sure it's nice and snug. And then you can put any length of wire that you need to get from your receiver to your outlet that you would need. I know the power cord that comes with the supply itself is only about 2.5 feet. So here's the male end of that, and I've just fed it through here, kind of underneath, and then I've got an outlet. Here's the wall here. There's an outlet that's just back behind the bricks you can see there. So I just needed a little bit of extra length, and then I'm able to just quickly, easily connect up the two pieces. So that's essentially it. I did run into a little issue with my soldering where I guess one of the connections was higher resistance. So when I did solder everything back up, I was getting a lower voltage on the top side of the board than the bottom side, the supply side. So I basically just reflowed both of the solder joints, and then I was getting what I needed. The supply itself puts out about 6.6 volts constantly. When I had the problem, I was getting the 6.6 volts coming in, but on the top side of the board I only had about 3.4 volts. So if you run into an issue there, you may just want to try to reflow your solder joints. I tested it along the way, and that was the only time I had any issue. So basically that's all there is to it. I'm going to put it back together and show you that it's working again, and I hope this helps and saves you a few dollars and extends the life of your system. Okay, so I just lied a little bit. I'm actually going to show you how it goes back together. So this plate here, these are the two receptacles for that spring-loaded battery compartment. So these are going to be facing away from the circuit board. They've got two tabs on the corners. Sorry, it's tricky with one hand. So hopefully that sets right down nicely there. Feed the wires out the back here. putting the cover in place a little bit here, but again, this is where somehow it needs, this is upside down, but it needs that battery pack to be kind of clipped in for everything to fit together. So I'm going to click that into place, and then you should see that everything kind of fits together flush on the front. And then I'm going to be able to, it's coming apart on me a little bit. Oh, got to put those two screws back in. They're actually on the underside the way I was holding it. So everything, this should look like as it looked before. Got those two holes in the corners there. I'm going to put those two screws back in, and then we'll be in business. Okay, so I snugged up those two screws. I'm going to put the unit more or less back into place here. Wires are a little bit out of place. But I'll show you once I reconnect up the supply here, you'll see that LED come back on. There it is blinking. That means it's ready to receive the remote control. So I've just got to tuck a few wires back into place here, and we're done. Okay, so I've replaced the switch cover, tucked the wires back in. It's never really been beautiful, but we're all plugged in. I'll close the grating here. We should be ready to go. On, off, on. All right. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helps you out.